Hi, I'm David, and this video is on MEdit, my powerful and easy to use MIDI sequencer. I created MEdit because I was trying to make complex music compositions, and the sequencer I had made it very difficult. In order to show MEdit's power and ease of use, I will show the end result of how to do what I was trying to accomplish. You might not need all of the following tools, but at least some of them will be helpful in your own creations. My goal was to create binaural beat compositions. If you haven't heard of them, binaural beats result from playing different music frequencies in the right and left ear. For example, if a 200 Hz tone and a 205 Hz tone are used, a 5 Hz beat will be heard, even though it isn't being played. Normal speakers aren't capable of producing 5 Hz tones by themselves, nor can humans hear such low tones if they are directly played. Instead, they are produced by the brain from the difference in the higher frequency notes. Binaural beats of this nature can help you learn to relax, and some people claim other benefits from them. To get started, open MEdit. Assuming it is the first time, a help page will appear. To keep it from reappearing, go to the File, Options, and uncheck Show Help at Startup. MEdit has a context-sensitive help system, so you can press F1 at any time to get relevant information. The first thing to do is maximize MEdit and drag the piano view taller. Double-click on the title bar for the first, and click on the blue bar below the piano view and drag down before releasing for the second one. You will immediately notice the different colors used on the screen. The white and grays, as you may be able to guess from the left side, correspond to the white and black piano keys. The greenish bars correspond to the bass and treble clef, so they are easy to see on the screen. And the light aqua bars are the extended staff bars, so in entering sheet music you can just count the extensions without having to remember that the fifth extension above the treble clef corresponds to B6. Currently this goes 5 above and 5 below, which can be modified if there is a call to do so. Getting back to our first task, we need to find what note to use for the 200 Hz tone, so click on the Tools Frequency Finder menu items. A window appears that calculates bass note and bent note frequency values. In this window you can use the up and down arrows to change the bass note. After playing around for a second, you'll find that G3 is the key closest to 200 Hz. We also need to know what value to use for the pitch bend. For this example, we will be using the Microsoft synthesizer, and it, like most synthesizers, defaults to a semitone bend range of 2 for a complete movement of the pitch bend wheel. That means our G3 can be bent up to an A3 or down to an F3. Since our synthesizer is standard, don't change the semitone bend range box value. Instead, click on the third combo box. In addition to using the up and down arrows, the page up and page down buttons also work and help speed up the selection to find which pitch bend value corresponds to 200 Hz. You can also use the drop down itself, but that's much slower. After playing around, we find that a pitch bend of 1433 is the closest we can come to a value that results in 200 Hz. So now we need to start building the composition. As I said, we will use the Microsoft synthesizer. It is set as the default synth, but that can easily be changed by right-clicking on the desired device and selecting Make Default Device. Only blue output devices can be used as defaults. The green ones are recording devices, which we will get to in a bit. So let us move the Frequency Finder window out of the way. It doesn't hurt to leave it open. Then place a note on the piano view. A good habit to get into is to make compositions start one measure in from the beginning. This way all the MIDI setup events can be played during the first measure, and the instruments will be ready to play without any problems by the beginning of the second measure. Therefore, I'll double-click on the G3 at the first measure. Since nothing has been used before, a quarter note with a velocity of 100 appears at the double-click location. To change a note's duration, move the mouse to the right edge of the note until a right-left arrow appears. Click and drag the note to make it longer. Similarly, moving to the top of the note will make an up-down arrow appear. Click and drag it upward to increase the note velocity. If you click and drag the note itself, you can move it anywhere on the screen, and releasing the note will place it at the new position. Alternatively, you can right-click a note and select Adjust Note, or just double-click on a note to bring up a window that allows you to change all of the parameters. Afterwards, a Ctrl-Z will undo the move. To zoom into notes, increase their width by moving the mouse over a tick value in the timeline view, then click and drag to a new width. The heights can be increased by right-clicking in the piano view, selecting the ticks per key option, and selecting an appropriate value. I should point out that MEdit does allow single note aftertouches, rather than only channel aftertouches if your keyboard supports them. You can get to them via the previous menu and enter them manually if you wish. Like I said, your synth must support them, and the Microsoft synthesizer does not. Even though it wouldn't hurt to leave them, I'll delete them. Then delete the view by right-clicking on the Key Aftertouch view in the Device Track Window Organizer and selecting Delete View. Now if we double-click anywhere else on the piano view screen, another note will be added. It will use the last note length and velocity values. Instead of double-clicking, you can also hold the spacebar down while single-clicking. If the spacebar isn't held down, MEdit's play cursor position moves to the mouse position. In addition to the spacebar, there are mnemonic keys for the various notes. Press W and single-click for a whole note, H for half note, Q for quarter, E for eighth, S for 16th, T for 32nd, and F for 64th note. As you see, everything is currently snapping to quarter note boundaries. To change that, right-click in the piano view, click the Set Snap option, and choose the desired snap value. I will leave it at quarter notes for now. Let me place some more notes randomly around the screen to show the selection features, as well as undo and redo. With the cursor placed between notes, press Ctrl and B to select all the events before the cursor. Ctrl and E selects to the end, and Ctrl plus A selects all the events in the view. If you need to select everything in a track, you can press Ctrl plus T. For example, if I create a pitch bend view by right-clicking on the track and selecting Pitch Bend View, and then I hold down the spacebar and drag left to right in that view, a series of pitch bends are made. Press Ctrl T followed by Ctrl C for copy, and all these events can be pasted into a new tracks event view. If you aren't in an event view, only the objects which match the view type will be pasted. Let me undo once. And now that we are over the piano view, do a paste. Now let us delete that track. An item to touch upon briefly is snapping objects. Even though snap is currently set to quarter notes, it is possible to quickly override that value to tick by holding down the 1 key while editing or moving notes. Here's an example of changing note lengths. And here I'm moving notes to non-quarter note boundaries by holding the 1 down. If you want to quantize notes to the nearest snap boundary, just select the note or other MIDI events and slightly move them. Once the mouse is released, they will align themselves to the desired points. Now they are at the quarter note boundaries again without using undo. A quick way to pan around the screen is to hold down your mouse's middle mouse button and move the mouse. You can also use the scroll wheel to move up and down in the piano view, and holding the Shift key while scrolling will move side to side. When more screens are visible, for example by adding another track to make a piano view appear, holding down Alt while in the piano view and then scrolling the wheel makes the entire screen scroll. Let me undo that. We have now covered basic editing and scrolling. Let us get back to creating the binaural beat composition. First, let us erase everything except the G3. I will use Ctrl-T to select everything, including the pitch bends, then Control-click on the G3 to unselect it, and press Delete. There are 3 tasks we need to accomplish with this G3. First, its pitch must be bent to 200 Hz, then it needs to be panned to either the right or left audio channel, and its instrument needs to be changed to a sine wave, for example's sake. Actually, there is a 4th thing to do, which is lengthen the note, so double-click on it and increase its duration by 1,000 ticks, which will make it about 30 minutes long instead of 2 seconds. To add a pitch bend, all we need to do is select the pitch bend view and place an event. Another way to select the pitch bend view is to hold the Shift key down while in another view associated with the track, such as this piano view. Then select the pitch bend view. Once it is clicked, the view appears as the topmost visible window, so it can be found easily. Any window you select through the menu will appear at the top, below any partially shown window, even if the window is already open elsewhere. So either double-click somewhere before our note, or single-click while holding the spacebar down to place a pitch bend in this view. The pitch bend view was actually the main reason I created MEdit, because the other sequencers I played with made working with events in their pitch bend view very difficult. Pitch bends can hold values from about plus 8,000 to minus 8,000. And the other sequencer only allowed a view height of about 1 screen inch. Selecting and modifying pitch bends was not fun at all. This view in MEdit, like all others, can be resized height-wise by clicking on the blue bar at the bottom and dragging. Making it large like this removed all my frustrations. It is now possible to find and select pitch bends much easier than other sequencers I'm aware of. So right-click on our pitch bend. Since there is only one thing that can be performed on it, unlike notes, no pop-up menu appears. Instead, the event parameters for pitch bends automatically opens. Simply enter our bend value of 1433 in the bend value box. You could also drag the pitch bend larger and smaller, but since a screen height of 800 pixels isn't as great as the 16,000 plus bend values available, you're not guaranteed to find 1433 that way. In this case we are lucky. 1433 is one of the values that appears when the mouse is moved. Now we need to pan the note to one side. With MIDI, panning notes is performed by the pan controller. So open up a controller view for the track. Then, inside it, right-click and find the Change Controller menu item at the bottom. Select 10, Pan. Place an event by single-clicking while holding the spacebar down, or just double-clicking. Then change the value to 0. Move the mouse cursor to the beginning of the composition and press the Control key and the spacebar together to play the composition, or you can use the play button on the toolbar. A piano will play and gradually fade away. Let us change this to a sine wave to eliminate the fall off. Standard MIDI patch sets don't include a sine wave, but the Microsoft synthesizer allows one to be downloaded and used. Right-click on it and select Add DLS Download. In the screen that appears, select the sine wave entry about 2/3 of the way down the combo box list. Notice that the sound will preview, and pressing the up and down arrows will change the previewing sound to help select instruments more easily. Accept 0 as the default patch number, press Add, and then press Accept. Tracks default to playing patch 0 on startup, so when the composition is played again, a sine wave will sound and not fade away. As an aside, if you don't want a preview during the last step, or when placing and modifying notes, You may turn the feature off by clicking the Tools Preview Mode menu item. If you listen to this through headphones, you will notice that although the sound is predominantly in one ear, some is still routed to the other ear. This is because the Microsoft synthesizer isn't programmed to 100% right or left internally. To hear the range of the pan values, we can place an envelope in the controller view by holding down the spacebar while we drag the mouse. Before doing so, the first event will snap to the current snap setting. So right-click in a view, select Set Snap, then select Tick. Now press the spacebar, click at the bottom of the controller view, and drag left to right, moving the mouse up and down while doing so. When played back, it now sounds like this. If you wanted to get 100% sound separation, you could record the output and strip the low volume channel in an audio editor, and repeat after creating the 205 Hz tone in the other ear, then recombine the recordings. Although it's doable, it's a pain. Instead, you could just use a synthesizer that has the ability to pan to 100%. On this system, only the keyboard attached to the MIDI Sport 2x2 Out B can do so. If we wanted to play our current work on that device, we can go into the Event view, select All, then create a new track on the MIDI Sport 2x2 Out B, open an event view for it, and perform a paste operation using Ctrl+V. Finally, mute the Microsoft synthesizer track by right-clicking on it and selecting Mute Track. Then play. In headphones, you will note that the sound finished playing entirely in one ear. A real binaural beat composition requires 100% separation like this. Without it, the beats will still sound when we are done composing this example, but they will be generated by the speakers instead of inside your head. I will continue using the Microsoft synthesizer for our work, because you will have one on your system and can follow along more easily. So I will undo a couple steps to get rid of track 4. Let us also get rid of these pan events by pressing Ctrl A and then delete. Then create a new event and change its value to 0. Now we need to work on the events for the other ear. In MIDI, events affect everything in a channel. That means if we placed another pan event after our current event in any track attached to our current channel, it would override the original event, and the entire composition would sound in the other ear after the new pan event. To fix this, we need to create a new channel for the 205 Hz tone to play on. So double-click on the Microsoft synthesizer, or right-click on it, and select Add Channel. We can use an event view to copy the existing items from the other channel into this one, so let me create one. Then go to any view of the first track, copy everything by pressing Ctrl-T followed by Ctrl-C to copy, and then paste them into the new view with Ctrl-V. You will note that the new objects pasted in starting at the cursor position rather than before the cursor position as they were copied at. To do the operation at the same tick, undo the last operation, then move the cursor position to the beginning of the composition and reselect everything in track 1. Now move the mouse over the new event view and paste the events without moving the cursor position. You could open the controller view for our new track, select the pan controller, and change it to a value of 127. Or you could just find the controller change event in the new event view, double-click on it, or right-click and choose Edit Event, and change the value that way. Now we need to find the new note and pitch bend for the 205 Hz tone. Go to the Frequency Finder window and modify things until 205 appears. One possibility is to use a G-sharp 3 with a negative 911 pitch bend. Another is an A3 with a minus 5007 pitch bend. So modify the track 2 note and pitch bend to either of those choices. We can close the Frequency Finder window as well, since it is no longer needed. The first track is still muted, so unmute everything. Then play the composition. As I mentioned earlier, the vibrato beats sounding from the Microsoft synthesizer are not true binaural beats, but they do give you an idea of the effect. The previous exercise showed how easy it is to work with MIDI events in MEdit. It also showed a difference between the Microsoft synthesizer and standard MIDI devices. There is another difference you'll want to know about, and that is how the Microsoft synthesizer handles drum kits. Standard MIDI devices use MIDI channel 10 for drum sets. As an example, let's create a new composition and then make a new track on the Microsoft GS Wavetable synth. Right-click on the channel and select Change Channel Number and type in 10. Now when a note is played, a corresponding drum kit instrument will sound. The Microsoft synthesizer is not standard in this respect. Let us delete the previous channel and use the one on the Microsoft synth. Change its MIDI channel number to 10. As you hear, no sounds preview. This is because the Microsoft synthesizer is designed to use Roland's downloadable sounds, and it can play drums on any channel you want, but the drums must first be downloaded to the channel. To do so, right-click on the Microsoft synthesizer and select Add DLS Download. In this window, scroll down to the end of the Instrument drop-down box and select one of the items with a -2 in the number after the name. All of these -2 instruments are drum kits. Let's select the TR-808. Accept the patch number of 0 and press Add, and then press Accept. Because the TR-808 has been downloaded to patch 0, and tracks default to playing patch 0, the TR-808 is now available in this track. MEdit will now use the drum kit on MIDI channel 10, since it has been downloaded to the DLS device. You can download more than one drum kit to a DLS device, but on MIDI channel 10, MEdit will only use the first drum kit that has been downloaded. Let us change the MIDI channel number back to 1 in order to give an example of using multiple instruments, including a drum kit, on a channel. Next, add another DLS download to the Microsoft synthesizer. For fun, let us use the tubular bell and accept a patch number of 1. Now, in the piano view, place two notes 2 beats apart. Open a program change view for the track and place a program change event to instrument 1 between those notes. Play the composition and you will hear the first note sound as a drum kit instrument and the second as a tubular bell. With that, let us move away from the Microsoft synthesizer specific information and on to the topic of synchronizing devices. Create a new composition by either pressing Ctrl and N for the file New Menu Items, or just press the New Composition button. Place a quarter note 1 measure in on the default piano view on the Microsoft Synth. Then create a new channel and track on the Microsoft GS Wavetable synthesizer that every system will have. Place a note on it 1 measure in at a different pitch than the first note. When the composition is played, one of the notes will play before the other note. This is caused by the different devices taking different times to respond to MIDI events because of the technical aspects of their operation. The term you may hear used for this is latency. Before creating a composition using multiple devices, this must be accounted for in MEdit in order to ensure everything plays at the same time. If you know you are only going to use 2 devices, it is perfectly acceptable to only adjust those 2, but it is better to adjust all of the devices in case you later change your mind and use another as well. If you don't adjust them all at once, the numbers determined for those 2 may need to be changed, whereas the following method will eliminate that repetition. On this system, the virtual MIDI synth devices are both the same software synthesizer. Their audio paths are therefore the same, so we can use one of them and copy the value to the other when we are done. The MIDI Sport 2x2 devices are also the same physical device, so we only need to determine values for 4 synthesizers in this list. The first step is to place a note at the same time on all 4 devices. Using instruments with a hard attack is very important. I am using a piano, but a drum would also work well. Notice that different pitches have been used for each note. Doing so makes it much easier to figure out which device plays first, second, third, etc. With preview mode on, all you have to do is click on each note to compare it to the sequence that played. As you figure out the playing sequence, change the name of each track to reflect it, to make it easier to remember. Let me mute the first and last playing track to double check that I've got the middle ones correctly identified. As this process hasn't been performed since MEdit was installed, we will need to add a section to MEdit's initialization file. The quickest way to get the basic information for that addition is to go to Tools, Get Suggested Latencies. A screen will appear that shows the devices on your system and the values Microsoft's internal routines recommend for them. Copy this entire block of text into the clipboard by highlighting everything and pressing Ctrl-C or any other method you use. Now in MEdit, go to the Tools, Edit Configuration File menu item. Since this is the first time MEdit has been ran on this system, the configuration file doesn't contain anything except a single line, so go to the end of it, press Enter, and paste the previously copied block of text into this file. If you have ran MEdit before and closed it and reopened it, this configuration file will have more text in it. so go to the end of the file before pasting. Next, change all of the numerical values in this pasted section to 0. The values recommended by Microsoft are not accurate enough for our purposes. Now that the playing sequence is known, start by working with the first and last of the notes, which means we must switch the devices that are muted. The note on the virtual MIDI synth plays last, so in the MEdit configuration file, change the numerical value to the right of the virtual MIDI synth to a large number, say 2 million, and save the file versus Ctrl and S. In MEdit, select the Tools Reread Latencies menu options, and then play the sequence again. The notes now play closer together. Reiterate this process, using a number greater than 2 million. I have already done this for my system, and found that the number which made both notes sound at the same time is 3,600,000. Once that number has been determined, simply repeat the process for the remaining devices, muting the tracks that aren't being calibrated. The track corresponding to the fastest device, which is track 1 in this example, will always be the track being tested against, and the value for that track will remain at 0. Once that iterative process is complete for this system, these are the results. Once again, in MEdit, reread the latencies. Copy the values for the duplicate devices and save the file. As you can hear, now the notes all sound at the same time. With this out of the way, the music you compose will be synchronized across all your devices. This may need to be performed again after system updates if device drivers get changed. The next item to go over is recording from external keyboards. MEdit allows you to record up to 16 MIDI channels simultaneously and route them to any track you desire. As a simple example, let us create a new blank composition with 2 tracks on 2 different devices. To set up recording, double-click on a recording device, which are shown in green in the device track window organizer. On this system, the MIDI keyboard is attached to input B. Double-clicking on that device or right-clicking and selecting Show Track Map brings up the recording device track map for it. Click on the row for the track you want to record everything into and press the A key for all. Press OK and you are done. To record, press the microphone symbol on the toolbar or the Actions Record menu items, or Ctrl plus Shift plus R. When this is done, all the MIDI events played on the device will be routed to the selected track. Let us play that back. If you have multiple keyboards or change your keyboard output channel while playing, each channel can be routed to a different track by using the Record Track Map. Using the previous composition, undo everything to leave the tracks blank. Then open the Record Track Map. Click on the 2 and drag it over track 2. When you release, the 2 will disappear from track 1 and appear in track 2. Now when you record, messages on Channel 2 will go to Track 2. As I only have one keyboard on this system, I will change the channel in mid-course. As you can see, the events after the channel change appear on the second track. With the above tools, very sophisticated arrangements can be made. MEdit has a couple more tools for you to use. The first is repeats. If you right-click in any track view, the option to place a repeat appears at the top of the pop-up menu. After selecting that option, select the number of measures to repeat and the number of times to repeat. Any notes or other MIDI events in the case of the other views will repeat at that frequency. They also automatically update when the initial events are changed. If you want to change the number of measures to repeat or the number of times to repeat, right-click on the repeat and choose the Modify Repeat menu item. Then update the information. To change the location of the repeat, simply delete the repeat and place a new one at the desired position. If you want to make a repeat permanent, select the Merge and Delete Repeat option. There is no reason to do so unless you need to access the repeated items instead of the originals for some reason. If it is for something as simple as controlling volume, volume controller messages can be placed after the repeat, eliminating the need for access to the repeated notes. Let me undo everything before moving on. The second tool worth mentioning is time signatures. MEdit allows you to place them in your composition by selecting the global time signature view, double-clicking in it near the measure boundary of the desired signature, and modifying the place signature. Here's a 4/4 time signature 4 measures into the composition. Placing a 7/4 time signature 4 beats before that one will move the 4/4 signature back by 3 beats. Note that modifying time signatures does not update inserted repeats, as just shown. That is the only way to make repeats fall on non-measure boundaries in MEdit. So if you wanted a 1.5 measure repeat in 4/4 time, you could place a 4/4 time signature, followed by a 2/4 time signature, insert a repeat to repeat those 2 measures, then delete the 2/4 signature. Also note that the repeat feature allows you to fairly easily create a tempo track. Doing so becomes a little more complicated if multiple time signatures are used throughout your composition, but for a single time signature piece, all that is needed is to create a track, insert the repetition pattern in the first measure, and place a repeat over that measure. MEdit has a few more tools to mention before I finish. I won't go into their details, I just want to point them out. They are located in the Actions menu. The first of these is for inserting ticks into your composition, for a single track or composition wide. You can also change the performance key by adjusting all of the pitch values up or down. And if multiple tempos exist in the tempo view, all of them can be adjusted proportionally through the Adjust All Tempos menu item. You can find out more about these tools in the help file. When saving your composition, MEdit supports 2 types of files, MIDI Type 1 files and MEdit files. If you need to share music with someone else, save the file as a MIDI file. MIDI does not know about repeats, so the repeats will be eliminated, but the repeated notes will remain as regular MIDI events. If you choose the MEdit file format, repeats are kept and the screen layout for your composition is also saved. With that, we have covered the basics of MEdit. I hope you have fun using it and create many beautiful compositions with it.